Thanks for coming. I know it was kind of short notice, but I appreciate you all helping me out. For my last master's class, I had to identify a problem in the classroom and then come up with some intervention or strategies I could use to correct the problem and then present my findings to my PLC. So today we're going to look at that information as we go through this PowerPoint, and let's begin. So the first thing we're going to talk about, this is just a quick overview of all of the things we're going to hit. We're going to look at the PLC agenda in just a second, and it's also right in front of you. Feel free to take notes as we go, write down any questions or ideas you have, or you can feel free to share them as we progress through. We are going to begin with looking at the PLC, like I said, agenda. First thing I want to talk about is just the introduction of the project. Like I said, this is for my last master's class. I've already kind of given you an overview of what exactly we're doing. So we're looking at a problem that I saw consistently in my classroom and an intervention strategy that I found as well. We're also going to look at my own classroom vision statement. This is something that I have always held in my heart, and I have it posted on my wall so that I always remember it, and especially when I'm having a hard day and certain students are giving me trouble. But I wanted to share that with you all to kind of set the mind frame for, or set your mind on how I'm approaching this problem in my classroom. We're also going to be looking at an intervention strategy that uses Elkonin boxes. And to do that, we're going to break that down into several steps. You see those listed on the screen as well as on your agendas in front of you. And then we're also just going to kind of wrap up, answer any questions if you guys have any, that sort of thing. So to begin, this is my personal classroom vision statement, and it says, as an educator and advocate for my students, I will strive to encourage them to take ownership of their learning, attain knowledge to their fullest potential, and motivate them to be responsible and productive members of society by providing a welcoming and safe environment for their learning. So with that in mind, I looked at my classroom. Now, my problem was based on my experience as a high school resource English teacher. Students were placed in this class based on their IEPs. They are ones who have a specific learning disability in the areas of basic reading, reading fluency, and or reading comprehension. Those three things set them in my classroom. My problem that I encountered is that these students, they're entering high school with a lack of appropriate grade level reading skills. This is due to a weak phonemic awareness, and overall, out of my 5 students, the average reading level is about a 2nd grade level, and these are 10th, 11th grade students. This is a problem because, as you see with them being of that age, it's negatively impacting their ability to complete and comprehend grade level assignments. And this is across all content areas, not just in my classroom. So yes, it's a problem in my classroom, but it's something that I'm hoping will benefit them in their other classes as well. As I began kind of thinking about this weak phonemic awareness, I tried to research different ideas of ways to intervene in that and ultimately increase or improve their reading ability by simply focusing on phonemic awareness. And by doing that, I came across this article by Dr. Joseph. And in this article, he calls Elkonin boxes word boxes. Sometimes they're referred to as sound boxes. They all kind of represent the same idea. Today I'm going to specifically focus on Elkonin boxes. But back to this. In his article, he found that when he was presenting phonics instruction, a traditional way, and then with the use of word boxes or Elkonin boxes, he looked at the impact it had on student learning. So in this article, he states, the results revealed that children who received word box instruction significantly outperformed children who received a more traditional phonics instruction approach on word identification and spelling post-test and transfer measures. In the word box's condition, modeling and scaffolding helped the children become aware of word structures. Specifically, the divided boxes provide a scaffold or a supportive structure for helping children segment word parts sequentially and blend them together to make a whole. Thus, word boxes lessons provided children with one approach to studying about how words are formed. Once I found this article and I read through it, I was really encouraged to implement these Elkonin boxes. So moving on. Elkonin boxes, what are they? Elkonin boxes help to increase reading skills by challenging students to segment words into their individual sounds and syllables. Boxes are broken down on a piece of paper, dry erase board, chalkboard, anything that students can use to write with, you can use. And they're asked to listen to a word and then mark a single box for each of the sounds that they hear. So these sound boxes are just rectangles that are divided into 3 sections. This next slide, you're going to see a visual of that. And they can use counters, they can use tokens, and if you don't have that, or if you don't have access to any of those things, I have plenty, they can just use their pens and put a dot or an X or circle or something inside of the box to represent the sound that they hear. Children move the counters as they hear each sound in a word. At first, the person who's implementing this strategy, so the teacher, would have the students listen to how they say a word. So they would say it very slowly. And then the children place the counter into the first box as they hear the first sound, and so on and so forth. This is an example of that. In this case, students are shown a picture. So this one is a car. There are 3 letter sounds that they would break that into to begin with. The first one in car is obviously k, k. So k, a, r, car. So if they can identify all 3 of those things, or all 3 of those sounds, then they're doing very well with that. The next thing, once I found this strategy, I had to pre-assess my students on their basic knowledge of phonemic awareness. To do this, I used the phonemic segmentation test that's broken into 3 parts. The purpose of this test is to identify a child's ability to isolate individual sounds in spoken words as an early indication as to whether he or she is ready for phonics instruction. In the subtest, students are asked to listen to spoken words pronounced by the examiner and then isolate sounds in the initial, medial, and final positions in a word. So this breaks this down into 3 developmental levels, lowest score being novice, where they get 0 to 8 terms correct, apprentice, 9 to 12 words correct, and then proficient, 13 to 15 words correct. So part 1, this is looking at the beginning or initial sounds of a word. So in this case, the instructor would look at the student and they would say, when I say the word sit, what is the first sound that you hear? So you would go through each of these words and you would write down what the student says. So if I say the word sit, they should be able to say s, that S sound. The second part, this is looking at the sound in the middle of the word. So for instance, if I was to say the word not, the student has to say that ah or that o sound. As you go down the list, you record their responses. Final word sound for part 3. So if I say the word hot, they have to identify that T sound at the end of the word. So they've got also a list of words that you would say, and they have to identify the N sound. Once that's all completed, it shows you how to add up all 3 parts out of 15 words to find their developmental level. Once I did this with all 5 of my students, I then looked at where I wanted to go from here. So what was I going to use this data for? So based on the data I gathered, my goal is for each student to increase by at least 1 developmental level by the end of a 2-week instructional period. To ensure we do this, we're going to spend 20 minutes every day for 2 weeks where we are specifically focusing on phonemic awareness instruction using the Elkonin boxes. This is a breakdown of instruction, a daily activity for 20 minutes, what we'll be doing in the classroom. So week 1, this is where we are modeling and guided practice through direct instruction. This is where students would be given 3 pictures and examples to say the word. So this is just all direct instruction, teaching the student how to use Elkonin boxes. Tuesday, this is guided practice with the teacher. So for instance, during this day, I would be calling on students to help come up to the board or on the overhead or whatever it is to demonstrate this use. Wednesday, they'd be working in pairs and then also individual work. Thursday would be the whole group recap of the lesson. So during this activity, I would be asking students, okay, why is this an important skill to have? Why are we using this? How is this going to impact our reading? Things like that more application level. Friday would be a checkpoint. So basically, when you have a spelling test, you take the test on Friday to figure out how many words they can spell correctly. Same kind of concept. We'd be implementing that Elkonin boxes, checking their understanding on Friday. For second week, it is the same basic implementation, but instead of using those basic words, we're going to introduce digraphs. So AR, ES, those kinds of sounds that they would encounter. So same instruction, it would just be making the information a little more challenging. At the end of this 2-week period, all of the students did increase by at least 1 developmental level based on this intense instruction. My 2 highest performing students went from a developmental 2 level to a developmental 3, and then all my 1s went to at least a 2. So, where do we go from here? Something that really challenged me was understanding that phonemic awareness and phonics are not the same thing. And so what I would want to do is I would want to assess student understanding of the alphabetic principles and letter sounds. So does the student understand that every letter makes a sound? Does the student understand that vowels are special because they make 2 sounds and every word has to have at least 1? And also something that I would like to do is, as students progress towards obtaining and maintaining proficiency in their phonemic awareness, I'd like to introduce phonics instruction, and then sight words and sight words in a story. These are all some basic next steps that I think are easy to implement in the classroom setting, and I think that they would be beneficial for students, not only in increasing their reading skills, but their comprehension scores, or their comprehension skills as well. So that was my problem and my personal way to tackle that problem in my classroom. And are there any questions? Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to hearing about how you guys can implement this with your students who struggle with phonemic awareness too. Thanks.